So, whatever we're going to call this, I'm not sure. I'll think of a title at some point or another. But the basic idea of this is I watch movies with my dad, who is 1,000 years old, and he watches it with me, and we decide basically how it holds up across both generations, which means we'll watch both genres of movies, that being...
Some movies I love that I grew up with,
yes,
and some movies you love that you grew up with, and some of my movies you can't stand, and some of your movies I can't stand.
Oh, whatever.
Yeah.
Thankfully, though, this first one we both agree on is a great movie. We watched Tombstone.
You're welcome.
Yeah, as we'll more than likely put in the title, but why not? So, the first thing we want to do is first impressions and does it hold up today? Personally, I love the movie. I think it really calls back to... So, like, my thing is, I never liked, Grandpa's old westerns, where it's just super old, and it's kind of hard to follow the story when you're young, and you just don't understand a lot of what's going on. And it's very shoddy compared to Tombstone, so to speak, just kind of the production value and cameras and stuff like that. But this one I thoroughly enjoyed. It kind of just called back to that old western feel. You really connect with the movie, and it kind of brings out that little boy, I want to be a cowboy feeling.
Well, and just so everybody knows, this was the first time that you've watched it.
Yeah, I've never seen this movie before.
Probably the 100th time that I've watched it. We did watch the TV edit, which doesn't really cut out much, but there's also extended editions and things like that if you're really into the movie. But you're right, it gets away from that old western, Grandpa's old westerns kind of thing, and that was one of the appeals for me when I watched it. It was a new western. It was a new style, new feel, and actors that I had known, and some actors that were completely unknown at the time.
I think like contemporary is the word, right? Where they kind of mix it with the modernistic feel, or I think that I'm not sure if that's the right word.
Yeah, it's just the camera quality's better, the editing quality's better. Just it's a cleaner movie,
right?
Where it doesn't feel like they filmed and edited the entire thing out in the desert. They actually went to a studio and did the editing afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think it still holds up after multiple watches, to the point where you see a couple goofs here and there in the movie and a couple things that do pull you out of the movie for a minute, but I think the acting is, and I've always used the example that the acting in that movie is the benchmark for almost all other movies. To
be more specific, you mean, I'm gonna wait for the dog to stop barking. You mean Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday. That personal performance. Like Kurt Russell was amazing. Sam Elliott did a great job, and I can't remember who played Johnny Ringo, but Doc Holliday specifically kind of
that would be Michael Biehn, or Behan, or however you pronounce it.
Right. I think Val Kilmer was kind of the piece of resistance that kind of glued all the other parts, that kind of added the finishing touch to the movie that it needed, which was just another killer performance of a really good character.
It was a superstar performance, and the deeper you get into the movie, if you watch, behind the scenes interviews with Val Kilmer, you can tell just how much he studied the character. He even went to a dialect coach to figure out the speech patterns and accents and the whole behavior and attitude of a gunslinger, knowing that he's going to die, so not caring how he dies and just living his life. And just, I think he unleashed a phenomenal character, and like I've always said, on par with Heath Ledger's Joker.
Oh, absolutely.
In my opinion, are the two best performances that I've seen in movies that I always call back to.
Well, something that really struck me during the movie that I knew that I would want to bring up in this point, he had this feel to him where, he's a gambler and he's a gunslinger, but he just had this way of walking in and decision making and the way that he talked to people, especially in high intensity situations, where you always knew that he never put all of his cards on the table, if that makes sense. You always knew he had something brewing in the back of his mind. He had an ace up his sleeve at any given time. You knew that at any given point, Doc Holliday wasn't out of options.
Yeah.
And he's got at least one thing ready to go at any given moment. You never really can tell what he's thinking.
Well, you can tell that he was confident in his trade, whether it be in tense situations of, the gunslinger side, and he was good at poker. And like you said, he always had an ace up his sleeve.
Well, yeah, like that's what I mean.
In life as well as in the game. So he always was cool under pressure, knew that he hadn't maxed out his abilities yet, and knew what he was capable of, that he was better than everybody else around him.
That's what I meant. Like, you never see him go 100% because he never needed to. Yeah. And he didn't want to show everything that he had.
Well, and his knowledge of how much better he was it never came off as arrogant. It came off as extremely confident.
Right. It was more of instead of boisterous and flamboyant, it was a very structured foundation, so to speak. Like, you could tell he just wasn't worried. He had a very strong foundation of his skills, and he knew he would be okay.
Yeah, and it's a fine line between coming off as arrogant and coming off as confident, because you could really turn off the audience to your character if you were just arrogant and,
Yeah.
But the whole movie is rooted in reality, historical accuracy. They really did a lot of work to make sure that it was historically accurate.
Right. And the thing that I like the most about this movie is, the thing that you kind of worry about with these movies is you're making a Western, you're making something historically accurate, and it's like right after the Civil War. The thing is, people aren't alive who were in that time, and people can't relate to it when you're just talking about it, because nobody knows what it's like to live like that. And it's difficult to make a movie that people can relate to in something that they've never ever experienced. And what I was really impressed with this movie is, for the first time ever, because I always see movies about marital issues or stuff like that, like Unbreakable with Bruce Willis. Like, their marriage is on the ropes the entire time. But the thing is, I haven't experienced anything like that because I'm way too young to be married or have kids. So I'm watching it and I understand, and I'm registering what the movie's kind of feeding to me, but I just don't understand it. You know what I mean? I don't really connect with it. But in Tombstone, when it came to him and his wife and the other girl, there was the first time in a movie I genuinely understood the point of view of everything. You know what I mean? It's struggling because she's becoming a bit of a doper. It's struggling because he's infatuated with the other girl, and it's coupled with he doesn't actually know what he wants out of life, but he knows deep down that what he wants is what the girl wants, and he's kind of kidding himself to believe that he wants this calm life because he's had, I don't know, they don't really show much of his past, but you can really see the conflict, and you can see the reasons why the relationship struggles, and you can actually kind of feel it
without it being spoon-fed to you. It shows the caliber in the acting and the writing and the development of the movie.
Because, especially when you're going to do a historical movie like that, the problem you have is one of the biggest issues that you see with movies nowadays, especially, like I always tell you, like the problem with the exposition. So what everybody will do, like some of the worst movies or best movies, they typically, like Star Wars has a crawl, and everyone loves it. It's got great music, it looks awesome, it's in space, and it tells you what's going on in a very distinguished and exciting manner. That's what the crawl is. The crawl is just exposition. And in Tombstone, they had their expositionary scene in the beginning with the black and white video footage to make it seem very historical. Even though I'm pretty sure it's footage from the actual movie that they just put the filter on.
It was the actors from the movie, yeah. A lot of them were the actors from the movie.
But you notice they made it smaller than the actual footage to make it seem like it's a film that they can't expand out that much, even though they very well could. they really helped it give that sort of storytelling feel to it, kind of like The Princess Bride, and help introduce you to these characters. So like the problem in the new Star Wars movie, right? The Knights of Ren walk by, and the stormtroopers are like, "Oh, it's the Knights of Ren. Oh, they're the baddest soldiers in the galaxy," or something like that. He said that, and the movie's just expecting you to believe it. Yeah. But in Tombstone, they say it, and then they show it, and they back it up. Yeah. They show, you're going to do something about it, or just stand there and bleed. Wyatt walks in, he knows what he's doing, he smacks up Billy Bob Thornton and throws him out of his own bar. And that's how you introduce a character. Oh, that's what I wanted to point out as well. They introduced the villain in one of the perfect ways, the way that a lot of great movies do it, like in Infinity War and in The Dark Knight. The opening scene is typically the villain and displaying the stakes and like what the villain will actually do. So in this one, he came in and shot up a guy at his wedding.
Well, it shows the 3 different layers of the villain, but you have Curly Bill, who's the leader of the gang. You have the gang themselves as a whole, and you have Johnny Ringo. But if you notice, Curly Bill didn't fire a shot.
I thought he was just kind of firing into the air.
He stood there. The very beginning, he throws out the sashes. I'm pretty sure that he just stands there and lets everybody else do the work because he doesn't have to, showing you that he is really in control of all these guys, and what he says goes, and they make it happen. And then they're all sitting there, and they're all firing around the priest or the friar or whatever he is, the padre. They're all shooting around him. He's got his hands up flailing, he's screaming at him the whole time, and there's a certain line that none of them will cross.
You don't shoot the holy man on holy ground.
Yeah, you don't do that. And then when he comes up and starts chastising them, Johnny Ringo turns around, hardly without even looking and without any further thought, then shoots him and kills him, showing that even after everything's calmed down, there's no need. He's unarmed, and he's a holy man. He's religious. It's a line that no one else would cross, and this guy just doesn't care. He's so full of hate. He's so dangerous, but he's not the leader. He's not the man in charge, but he is the
executioner.
Yes, he's the assassin soldier for the main bad guy. But then even after you take out both of them, you still have this entire gang you have to take out.
Right. Have you ever read Lord of the Flies?
Part of it.
Well,
I know the movie.
Yeah, that part made me think of it. You know Roger in the movie. So like, there's the kid. I forgot his name. He's like the leader of the choir. He's very power hungry. He's just a bossy kid. He doesn't want the main character. I forget all their names. He doesn't want the main kid that everybody liked to be in power. So he takes like the choir for himself. And his right hand man was Roger. Now Roger in the book and in the movie barely ever spoke a word. But he's the one who rolls the boulder down the hill to kill Piggy.
Yeah, he's the henchman.
Yeah, he's the one who like starts sharpening all the spears and throwing them, but then when they walk by, he's just this sadistic, twisted kid that just, he follows the leader to serve with some kind of purpose, but in reality, he just wants to be let off the leash.
Yeah. Well, and going back to what you were talking about, the exposition about the opening, where it's kind of the old TV style size is what that
right.
was. It was the old TV format, which is 4x3, almost square,
yeah.
right? Versus whatever letterbox look is, or the new. I can't even remember what
it's called. Like is. A 16:3 aspect ratio.
It's 16:9 or whatever it is. But yeah, the new TV style, newer TVs are based on a little bit closer to what theatrical screens are. That's why there's more continuity between watching a movie in the theater and watching it at home. That was the point. But the TVs that I grew up with were the 4x3, almost a square.
Like hardly a rectangle?
It wasn't even right. It was a square.
It was just a square box TV.
But I think the point of it was also showing that when they when it opens up to the title screen and the walls expand of, all of a sudden it goes to this 16 by 9 format or whatever, and I'll have to look at that. That's driving me nuts. I don't remember. Anyway, when it goes to the expanded format, it's basically saying, okay, this isn't your grandfather's Western. This isn't your dad's
right.
Western. And I think that's a visual way of showing that. And the color enhances, and it's clear, crystal clear, great title screen, and you get these guys rolling in, doing their thing. It really sets the stage.
It creates a comparison right
Yes.
in the beginning of the movie, because throughout the whole thing you're comparing it to that legitimate historical footage, or like the format of the historical footage.
So it was definitely a step out of your normal Western, and now it's this. It is the benchmark that all Westerns are measured by. All Westerns strive to be Tombstone.
Right.
You gotta remember, this movie's almost 30 years old.
Well, I looked it up. So
Came out in 1993. I graduated that year, and so you're watching almost a 30-year-old movie.
yeah, it's at this point it's 28 years old, I think.
Yeah. So, put in perspective, it's 7 years newer than Return of the Jedi. Does it seem as old as Return of the Jedi?
Not at all. But no, not even remotely. But that kind of brings us to our next point that we're supposed to bring up is after stating everything that we like about it, could we make it today? Could there be a remake? Could there be another Tombstone? And the thing is, you have to, well, especially because of Val Kilmer, you have to bring in a new cast. And how would you do it?
Are you talking about re-releasing the same movie today, or remake? If you were to do a remake and a recast, because those are two different topics. If you were to take that movie, if it was,
you mean like if they wanted like bolster theater sales, so they say, hey, Tombstone's in the theater, let's go watch it.
Well, that's going to draw everybody who has been a fan since it came out.
What I mean is my generation, because I'm the.
It would introduce a new generation, yeah, like re-releasing Star Wars in the theater. They did that,
yeah,
and it's multi-generational. I don't know that this has quite the same multi-generational pull, so I don't know if it would have the same theater draw. But say it was left just on the shelf for the last 28 years, and they never put it in the theater. If they released it now, does it hold up to today's standards?
Oh, that's the question. Okay.
Picture quality, is it clean? I mean, it's not filmed in high def.
It's not 4K, but honestly, because the thing is, I'm the movie buff of my generation, right? And there's so many movies that I like or will enjoy watching, and I'm trying to think because I enjoy the movie and I would go watch it, but
costume, set design, props.
Honestly,
guns,
I don't. There's nothing enticing enough, I think, for my generation, because everything's based on aesthetics and what you see and like how it feels, not necessarily the grittiness of the story or like the actual what you're going to see. Because
it's too. In other words, it's too deep.
Right, like there's not
emotionally.
There's not enough surface level stuff to make people want to come. I don't think so, because like with action movies nowadays, there's always got to be something new, right? Like. Tenet. Even Tenet doesn't super appeal to my generation too much, but it's successful even though it's a super deep movie like that because it's got, reversing through time. It looks super cool. It just looks cool. And it's the same with all the action movies going on, but this is grounded in reality, based on real people, and inaccurate. And accurate. I didn't mean to say that sounded like inaccurate, but problem is, like, if you wanted to make it today, right, the only way you would get people to show up is if you had a lot more guns, if the chicks were wearing, like, the traditional low-cut Western kind of dresses and everything, and if there was, like, basically kind of the old saying that people say, like, for nowadays it's got to be, like, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Mm-hmm. That's pretty much what you would need. You need to dial that up to 50 if you wanted to get in the trailer, if you wanted to get people to show up.
Well, that was the draw then too, but it's just been amplified over the last 30 years.
Well, even then, then that would still be the same point.
But I think the biggest thing for drawing an audience today is pacing.
Yeah.
So a good comparison for you would be A New Hope
And The Force Awakens.
Well, yeah, or even a new. Well, you can actually. So you got 3 generations in there. You got A New Hope,
right?
Phantom Menace.
Oh, you were gonna. Yeah. Okay.
And Force Awakens. But if you look at the pace of Phantom Menace, A New Hope, look at the pace of that.
Oh my gosh!
If you're not careful, you'll fall asleep.
Yeah.
Right. It starts off with a nice little action sequence, and then it gets real slow. You got droids walking through the desert. You've got all this slow play, build-up of story, dialogue-driven, setting the foundation for a bigger universe. The movie is not very complex as far as what happens, right, running through the plot of Star Wars. So then you fast forward, 20 years, 18, whatever it was, to Phantom Menace. Now you take Phantom Menace, and you've got the pod racing. You've got immediately the Jedi come and they get gassed within 30 seconds. There's not even there's no dialogue at the table. It's not like that they were brought in to have this discussion and then everybody gets assassinated or ambushed. It's just the two of them, and then they got to fight their way out, get in a ship, take off. They land. They spend about 5 minutes finding Anakin, and then it's pod racing, action, in your face, right?
Right.
Then you go to Force Awakens. Was there a moment where it even took a pause?
No, it's from the get like they introduce the characters briefly, but the opening scene is like, Poe jumping out of an X-wing and they're raiding a city and Kylo catches a blaster bolt, which is probably my favorite part of the movie. but then it's Rey and it's calm for a second, but then it kind of dives into something a little bit deeper. She's stuck here. She's scratching things on the wall and barely eating enough food. And
it's
then
a little slow, a bit of a slow moment,
a little bit
but not
slow in
much.
the beginning. But then they all meet up, and it's just boom, 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 boom. Millennium Falcon. She hits Finn in the face with the staff and stuff like that. And they're flying through. It's completely, this one goes to 11. It's dialed all the way up.
Yeah.
And
but
so I think the issue is just. There's not enough of an attention span of today's generation, or my generation.
But did it hold up to also a quality viewing for you? Did you feel like you were watching some old movie? Because here's a comparison to what came out in 1993 for you. Ones that you would have seen. Sandlot.
Oh.
Which is a rewatchable masterpiece, but it's also a period piece, so it's set back further in time. It obviously wasn't. It was filmed in 93 or released in 93. It wasn't a movie about kids in 1993. So
right.
Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Seriously, 93.
93.
Huh.
Which one seems older?
Tombstone.
Than Men in Tights?
Yeah.
Even
though Men in Tights is hundreds of years before Tombstone took place.
Rudy.
Well, the thing is,
you
got to keep in mind with those movies too is that you're not required to invest in them. You don't need to buy into them because, you don't need to worry about Benny's tuberculosis in The Sandlot.
No, I'm talking more about film quality. So when you go back and watch A Christmas Story every year, it looks grainy. Right. It looks kind of almost. It looks like a classic movie. A lot of that was intentional.
Yeah, it was kind of designed that way.
But when you look at Tombstone, did it look like you were watching a 30-year-old movie, or did it look like you were watching something that wasn't necessarily your speed?
It definitely looked like I was watching an older movie. I mean, I wouldn't. It's kind of hard to place the era because the thing is, the cameras are good, but then you've got the outfits, the way that the actors are behaving, the way that everything kind of is portrayed, and.
Well, to be fair, you don't watch a whole lot of period pieces. Now,
no,
that's something your generation doesn't necessarily do.
No, not really. No.
Sci-fi, forward-thinking. You guys were raised on the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So it's all geared towards, generally, big blockbuster sci-fi action movies, or something that The Rock is in this year or the next, which is, contemporaneous to what you're living. There's not a whole lot of that I can think of. There's not a whole lot of movies that are set.
No, I can't think of a whole lot of modern movies that are actually set back. But I will say, when I was watching, there was something that kind of struck me when I think when they were patching up Virgil, right when he was going out, and the three guys came up to him to tell him that they're no longer part of the gang. When I watched him come out and put on his coat and everything, I almost felt like I was watching The Mandalorian. For just a second there, I really got that Western feel to it. That gunslinger, just it was kind of like Mando's cape to me. When he put on the coat. And I think that's kind of the tie-in.
Well, you see where they drew from that and other westerns for the Western gunslinger,
right? Completely
samurai feel, which Star Wars originally had, and that Favreau picked up for The Mandalorian, and you definitely see parallels in Tombstone for that,
right? Because I think the thing is,
good.
The next top, not the next topic. What we see today in every movie is based off of what was going on back then. You know what I mean? So Mando's Western feel comes from movies like that, and it comes from the original Star Wars. Movies like, what was it? Perfect example, because I'm seeing trailers for it now. Like the new Godzilla movie. It's based off of older Godzilla movies, but the problem is they're trying to put a modern spin on it. So Mando succeeds because it works well. So a kind of a thing that I don't know why it is. My generation loves watching kind of a doting father, so to speak. So everybody loves watching Mando with the kid, seeing him soften up a little bit. And it's the same with Tony Stark in the MCU. He, with Tom Holland, people love watching that, and it's a lot of the same stuff over and over again. But they portray it well, and they mix it in with the older stuff. But the new Godzilla movie that they made, and actually both the new ones they made, I can't stand them because in the first one, Godzilla got 11 minutes of screen time. So they put too much modern into it and not enough of the old stuff. So the old stuff was people in costumes. It was so crappy, and it was, almost wondering if it's illegal, bootleg-looking Japanese movie with English over people who are very clearly not speaking English. And in this kind of outrageous human plot, but you didn't care because every 5 minutes there was a monster fight.
Yeah.
And that's where the new ones just suffer, because the problem is they try and get too much into the human crap.
Well, and it's almost as if it only works in that old environment when they did it.
Right.
Then.
Well, the thing is, I say this all the time. I know I talk to you guys about it, but the reason I love the Rocky movies so much. So one of my favorite movie scenes of all time is that scene right before the fight in the first movie, where Rocky is just walking around the ring, and he's just looking around. He's just thinking. You can see it on his face. And they just got this beautiful piano piece playing, and he just kind of reflects on everything. And I say the same quote all the time. I miss when movies used to take their time.
Yeah.
I miss when the pacing was a little bit slower, because I haven't seen the new Creed movies yet. I really want to, but
they're good.
Yeah, I bet they are. But if you were to make another Rocky today, right?
Yeah.
It would be fight, training, and that would be it. It would be none of the walking around town, bouncing his rubber ball around, or arguing with Mick about his locker, or walking around the ring, just thinking about the fight, and it just moves around.
Yeah, and I think that goes to movie makers today in studios pushing for mass market
excuse me,
mass market, bold audience or broad audience, mass appeal. Is Tombstone going to appeal to everybody?
No,
not necessarily. Although,
but those it does appeal to, will love it.
You know, your mom and sister came in one time when I was watching. Everybody was gone. They were out shopping, doing something. So I'm like, oh, I'm at home. I'm watching Tombstone. No one's going to bother me about it. I was maybe 5-10 minutes in, and they both came home, and surprisingly didn't ask what I was watching, just sat down and started watching it because whatever the scene was, it really was captivating at the moment.
Well, 5 to 10 minutes in would be like that might be the scene where he goes in and beats Billy Bob in the saloon.
I think it might have been right before that, and they asked, "Oh, is that Billy Bob Thornton?" And it kind of, "Oh, wow, look at him, he's so young. I can't believe it. That's weird." And then they sat and started watching the movie as it played out, and they got drawn in. They got sucked in. They ended up watching the entire movie. Said, "Wow, that was fantastic. What was that?" Like, "Oh, Tombstone." And before that, for the 20 years prior, or whatever it was with your mom, "Oh, I don't want to watch Tombstone."
Well, I think
that's your movie. It's not something I'm interested in. Oh, you tell Phoenix and it's, "Oh, boring." But then they sit and watch it on their own, and all of a sudden they're captivated.
Well, I think that's just it. Like, and I'm guilty of this too. There's no hook. There's nothing super enticing about a movie because Tombstone was meant to appeal to westerns that have already been made, and westerns back then appealed to that demographic. Like my great grandfather or something like that. So they made that to call back to it, but they made it slightly modern. People loved it, and there's nothing enticing about it now. There's no instant gratification, I should say. But when you actually sit down and watch it and buy into it, you love it.
Yeah.
So it kind of moves on to our next part that we got to talk about is, we kind of decide, what was our consensus on, like, whether or not you could releasing the movie today, but what about remaking it?
Yeah. So reboot.
So if we were to reboot it, make another Tombstone movie, and that was kind of like, just falls along the same lines, how would you cast it and how would you do it?
Yeah, I mean, I would just go, you'd have to go with just a straight reboot.
There's no way.
The only thing you could do is use the same kind of story but set it in something other than Western. If you wanted to use the same...
Really?
Yeah, you could do it.
So kind of
like... You could do it in a modern day setting, kind of like...
Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou? It's like a...
I haven't even seen it.
Oh, it's like a movie that's like it's actually like the story of the Odyssey, I think.
Probably,
or something like that.
But West Side Story is Romeo and Juliet,
right,
without all the snapping and stuff. But you're applying gangs and this and that to family feuds back in
So you're saying there would...
So if you were to put it in today's day, do you have gangs that someone could have a problem with? Someone in retired law enforcement that was trying to live his life after he moving to a new town and has a run-in with a gang that's taken over, and they find out he was a cop, and he says, "I'm sorry, I'm retired, leave me alone, not interested." But then he just can't stomach the things that are going on in his town and the things that are going on. He tries to get a piece of the pie, but they can't sit and accept that. You could easily put it in today's generation. It would be...
You could put the same storyline in it because the basic outline of the story is fantastic.
The outline of the story could be put in a modern twist with... It'd be, you mix Sons of Anarchy with, I don't know, what's a cop movie? Or a cop TV show, Blue Bloods or whatever. I don't know. I haven't watched that. But you know what I mean, where you could put it in that generation, and it wouldn't have to go back as far. It could be in today's day and age. The Walking Tall is kind of the same idea, where they had the original and then they did The Rock, but it's a guy who lives in this town. It's overrun by gangs, or at least the rich guy that runs the joint, and he takes them on. Roadhouse,
yeah.
Kind of thing. But you could use the same philosophy, or the same. Like I said, you could do shot for shot remake, but put them on motorcycles instead of horses, and have it be a modern day gang versus
I was going to say, because they don't necessarily need to be cops or abiding by the law. It could just be sort of a family gang kind of thing.
Yeah,
if you want to lean into like the Earp thing and the family thing, you could say like crime family, wants to go straight, can't stand what's going on around them, and kind of goes back into that.
Yeah.
Because it's, in all honesty, in Tombstone, that's kind of what it is. Technically, they're lawmen.
Well,
but in all honesty,
there's a lot more they could get away with that you couldn't get away with today. They're
right, exactly. But I mean, to put that into a modern thing, the only way to do that and the way that was presented, because the way that they did it back then, I mean, come on, they went out and picked a fight with him in the street and killed him. That was They're basically like the law was their gang. Basically, It was hardly any different.
Yeah,
except for the moral side of it.
Yeah. So the question is, what actors would you have?
See, that's the tough one. I think the first one you're gonna have to cast. Who's gonna play Wyatt Earp?
I don't know. I hadn't given that much thought. I should have. The problem is, with the last year of no theaters, no movies, you kind of been locked in.
I thought Chris Evans popped into my head for like a second, but I think he's a little too mainstream.
Too what do you call it?
He's not rugged. He's not rugged enough for it. I think because they do a really good description of him, but like the actor, you know what I mean? Like eyes close by the sun.
Yeah.
Look of predator and prey, the way that they described it. So I don't think he could do it, but he popped into my head for a second. So I'll give him that credit.
I think you could have maybe Jeremy Renner be more the Doc Holliday type.
Jeremy Renner?
Yeah, or you could even be Ringo. If you watch him in SWAT.
I've seen SWAT. He doesn't really strike me as the slick type. He's a little. I would say probably Ringo.
Yeah, not sophisticated enough to be, or doesn't play sophisticated enough to be.
He's a little kind of when he plays that character in SWAT, and the way that you kind of see him.
I wild card.
I haven't seen him in the Bourne Supremacy. Yeah, he's a little bit more heated, if you will. Yeah. He's not so much cold and calculating like Doc Holliday. He's a little more evil, so to speak, or a little more sadistic. Yeah. So I would, if I were to put him in the movie, I would put him in as Ringo. He'd have to bring a little something new to the table than he typically does, because he's kind of got this feel to him in other movies that I've seen that I don't think would super work. But let's talk Ringo for a second. Who played Johnny Ringo?
Well, that's what we were just talking about.
Well, yeah, I know. I'm sorry. It's just we were trying to figure out who could play Wyatt Earp.
Yeah.
But as for Johnny Ringo, if not Jeremy Renner, then
I don't know. I'll have to come back to that one.
All right, let's go back to Earp then. Who could play the Lawman?
Well,
who could play Wyatt
the
Earp?
two biggest ones that you'd have to worry about filling is Doc and Wyatt.
Doc and Wyatt.
You're gonna have to pull from my Rolodex of
I was gonna say
movies that I've seen recently.
I should probably start looking at look at a thing of actors just to get a feel for it.
Yeah, it'd have to be in their 30s.
I'm just going to look up actors and see what... No, I don't want actorsaccess.com. I don't know why that popped up.
Bradley Cooper could pull off maybe Wyatt Earp. Or, sorry, Doc, I mean.
Bradley Cooper playing Doc, huh?
Yeah.
I
Potentially.
don't think his body type kind of works out for you know what I mean? Just like the physical look.
Well, yeah, if you're looking...
He's
scrawny, emaciated, kind of...
But I could see Bradley Cooper doing that.
You could see, I could see maybe, what's his face? James Bond, Daniel Craig. Maybe a little too old now. But,
I was going to say he's a little.
Being Wyatt, or even Doc.
Let me look up modern actors because this is giving me all the old greats.
I mean, you could definitely go with Matt Damon.
Oh, I could see Matt Damon as
Wyatt.
But he's a little... Actually, he might not be too young for it. I almost could see him a bit as Virgil.
Yeah.
Maybe. Let's see. What do you think of Christian Bale?
Yeah. Maybe.
Maybe somebody in the cowboy gang. But not much.
Depending on how old you want him. Liam Neeson is Virgil.
Oh, I could take Liam Neeson as Virgil very easily.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. Ooh.
Today they'd probably end up having the Hemsworth brothers be the Earps. That way they could all be a family member.
Oh, that'd be hilarious.
But that's the way it would end up being remade today.
You'd have like their wives be the Olsen twins or something. How about this? Do you think Tom Hardy could fit into this? I mean, who would he be? That's the thing.
Potentially. Yeah, it'd be tough, but yeah, some of the guys.
Maybe someone like a kind of like a side character, but
you could have Hugh Jackman could do a good job, but he's also getting up there too.
He's a little older, but I don't think that would really hold him back that much.
So anyway, yeah, we'll have to. That'd be interesting to put a little work into first. So, the things I like best about the movie is just the family dynamic, and that the family dynamic is not just defined by blood. So, as angry as Wyatt and Virgil and Morgan get with each other, they're always brothers. Even though they thanked Wyatt for bringing them and getting everything together, but then they also blamed him the minute things turned bad, but they always counted on each other, they always stood by each other. And Doc, being this, lonely guy, like at the end of the movie, said, "You're the only one who's in my life who's ever given me hope."
Right.
That's a guy, the beauty and genius of the portrayal of Doc Holliday and the way it was written, the way his character was written as well, and who he was in real life, was, something that all people should measure a friendship by and strive to be.
Right.
Strive to have and to strive to be. This loyal to the end, thick and thin, someone who bonds themselves to you, and you could hurt their feelings, make them mad. You draw your lines. I will not be pawed at, but he will do anything for him. When he finds out that the Clantons and McLauries are upset with him, he comes out to join him. He's upset that he doesn't include them in the fight.
I love it's just the automatic response. He's just nobody even need to say a word to him. Nobody need to convince him. He's just out in the street and he's like, "Doc, what are you doing here?" He's like, "Someone's coming after us."
Yeah.
I love that. It's just so automatic. Someone's coming after us, and he means the Earp family, and nobody questions it because everybody knows. Yeah. Wyatt for a second he's like you don't need to do this, or he's like this isn't your problem, and
it's not your fight.
He gets insulted.
Yeah,
he's like, you kidding me?
Yeah, no, it's so well done, and then the end scene between the two of them just wraps it up beautifully.
Oh yeah.
So. Anyway, the last is what? Pick it apart?
So, here's the thing. We could nitpick it, but what I think we probably should do first is actually, whatever. Let's just nitpick it.
What was the other?
It was just overall, what parts did you not like? But that's more of kind of on a grander scale, like certain scenes or the...
Yeah, that's fine, but... Yeah,
it kind of falls along the same line anyway, because in all honesty, we're probably just going to start nitpicking it if we talk about that.
There's not much that I don't like about that movie.
That's the thing. I
only have two nitpicks, and one could be chalked up to the fact that it was a new town, right? It was a booming town. So it's so ridiculously subtle that there's one scene where you got this building that's painted like a charcoal gray, kind of blue gray, and you can see where one of the painters missed it with the roller, and you can see the fresh wood underneath.
Oh, jeez.
I mean, that's incredibly minute. But that could just be chalked up to the fact that it's a new town. Because when you look around at all the saloons, you look around at all the theater, and everything is new. So it's not like nothing is gritty. When they're walking around in this dusty backdrop, dusty town with black hats and coats and everything else. But then it gets dirty. They have to change their clothes. It gets filthy, which is cool.
Right.
It's realistic. But they really worked at that time to stay fresh and clean and sophisticated and proper, even though they were walking around in a dusty desert. So the new buildings could really, the fact that it's new construction could account for that. The second thing, which is kind of a goof, is when Wyatt and Josephine are running the horses.
Right.
She's supposed to be sitting side saddle, and there's a fake leg. Her right leg in the shot is basically a mannequin leg with a shoe on it to make her look like she's sitting side saddle and is kind of bouncing around. But every once in a while, they can't control the camera angle enough, and you can see her real right leg in the stirrup on the right side of the horse. It's like, just try and blend it into the horse a little better. With today's technology, they would have put her right leg in a green sock and edited it out with CG.
Yeah, it could have been done very easily.
They could CG it out and probably would have, but I like the detail to historic accuracy, but someone running and jumping, it would be pretty impressive to see anybody doing that side saddle without falling off backwards and snapping their neck. The third thing is, and this is the one thing that calls it back to the old school westerns and keeps it old school, is that there was only one scene where their guns ever ran out of bullets.
Oh yeah.
They do change their shotgun, pop out shotgun shells and reload during some down moments at the river, but like the shootout at the OK Corral, they're firing off. If you count rounds, and some of it you could say, oh well, it's the editing, the different camera angles, go back and rewind, blah blah blah. But if you just count how many times they're doing like the rapid, where they're hitting the hammer instead of, with the finger on the trigger, just slapping the hammer to make it go, and you can do that with a revolver. It was a 6-shooter.
Right.
There was
the only one
even if there were 8 rounds, they're still going well beyond that.
The only one who could make a solid case for it was Doc, because he carries 2 guns. But the rest of them, they only got 6 shots.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So where's the stop and reload? And that goes back to your sci-fi movies where they're laser bullets and you don't have to reload, and it goes back to the old school westerns where it would take away from the action if you stopped and reloaded.
Right.
So the only part where he actually runs out of bullets is the one where he points it at the guy and pulls the trigger and it goes click, and he says, "I got you now," and then he and Morgan both take the guy out.
Right.
So it was only relevant to the scene for him to run out of bullets because it made the scene more intense and
it also
more poetic.
It also let a little more poetic, and it let you know that Morgan was going to make it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he wasn't just dead there on the street.
Yeah.
Because that's how I felt personally. Because he shot him, and I'm like, oh, okay, so Morgan's going to be fine.
Well, the reason for that is also it goes back to what his brother, what Wyatt had just told him about killing somebody and the way it makes you feel.
Right, because he was the one who did the deed in the end.
Yeah, he really drove it home, and that one sunk in.
And it wasn't just like a heat of the moment fight thing. It was, he had plenty of time to think it over. It was not like a premeditated, so to speak.
It had slowed down enough to really.
It became a conscious decision.
It was the
Right.
coffin nail for the entire fight. It was the last bullet fired. It was a fatal blow, and it really drove in how it made him feel.
The only thing that I could really possibly nitpick about this movie is, and the problem is that it's actually more of a compliment to the movie, it's just, parts that you don't like the whole they were murdered in the street thing, or the fact that you don't get to see that coward who like begged for his life like 3 times actually like they just kind of tell you that that's the one legitimate nitpick I could actually say is as
you want to see a scene
bad,
where Ike Clanton gets killed 2 years later.
As sadistic as it is, I wanted to watch that guy die so badly because he's just he's a pony. He's like, oh, I'll never do it again. And the moment things get dangerous, the moment he has to pay the price for what he's done, he throws it all away and throws everybody else under the bus. He's such a coward.
Coming the most,
right. But the thing is, the only thing I could possibly nitpick is, I don't like the scene where they're coming out saying, "Oh, they're murderers on the street," because it's the bad guys doing that.
Yeah.
The movie wants you to feel that way because it's not a good thing that's happening.
But it's also historically accurate.
Yeah,
movie. But even the one of the tombstones in Tombstone that you see in the opening of the film that says, "Here lies Lester Moore."
Shot by a .44, no less, no more.
Yeah. So that is like still there, and was there.
Right. So, well, and I guess that's kind of a horrible thing to nitpick because, the movie wasn't happy all the time, therefore I don't like it. But I could see if this ever did get popular, because somebody just ripping me apart for it.
In modern movies, they show you the wrap up. They don't just tell you.
Yeah, it's kind of, and it calls back to what I said in the beginning of this. The biggest sin that movies have nowadays is that they tell it to you and they spoon feed it to you.
Show
and
you everything.
And they show that's the thing. They show nothing. They just tell it to you.
Well, yeah, but they show everything that you want to see.
It's fan service. It's
there you go.
Spoon fed.
So they would have had Ike Clanton. They would have had
They would have showed that.
It would have been a stinger, right? It would have been the stinger of the movie, a bar scene or whatever where he gets shot, just so you have that finish,
a little bit of satisfaction.
They don't show you. They just tell you and tell you to believe it with how awesome these people are, but then they show you and spoon feed you everything that you want to see. Like you said, all those nuance, all the little loose ends. They can't leave you with loose ends, and a lot of that is almost shows. I think it shows, as weird as it is, Family Guy's impact on culture. And I don't know if Family Guy was necessarily the first one to do it, but the impact on the culture and movies and everything else.
I don't really watch Family Guy, so
no, I know, and I've seen enough of it, and you've seen it in the commercials where anytime they're talking about something in the dialogue of the moment, it flashes to a scene of whatever it is.
Oh, a cutaway, yeah.
Yeah, they always cut to, while they're talking, they always cut to whatever it is they're talking about, so you actually see what it is they're referring to. And movies do that. You gotta see every last bit. And now we express everything visually, even to the point where when you want to text somebody something, you don't even explain it in words. You send them a GIF or a GIF or whatever.
It's a GIF.
Whatever.
It's a G.
I know. I'm just the GIF was for people who were going to criticize that I said GIF.
Yeah.
Anyway, or a meme or an emoji or an emoticon or whatever.
There's got to be something visual, something.
Yeah. Well, and it seems to capture. A picture was worth 1,000 words, so it seems to capture exactly what you're saying. So we speak to each other through clips and images, and now we watch movies where we can't have it explained to us in word. We have to see it.
Well, it's funny because I was thinking about this the other day. Some jokes are funny. I breaking down what actually makes something funny. It's what a lot of people talk about this. When it comes to offensive humor, they're offensive jokes you shouldn't get mad at because the reason they're laughing at it is because those are such horrible things, and they know that
it's over the top.
And the idea of it being normal is so ridiculous you can't help but laugh.
Yeah.
because they're horrible things.
Yeah.
So laughter's more of a showing you how much they think it's stupid.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about it. I'm like, well, everybody says if you explain a joke, it's not funny. I'm like, well, then that means by process of not process of elimination, but basic logic, it would make you think then not explaining it at all makes it funnier. So I was thinking about this in like terms of joking or storytelling, and I think the more of a leap or the more connection that the person who hears it has to make, I think the funnier it is. Yeah. So like if something, I can't remember exactly a complete example of it, but just something really subtle or really like something really subtle that somebody does, but you know why they do it because you make the connection between that and that. Yeah. It's funny.
It requires some thinking.
Right.
Well, and that's the thing with older movies, especially this movie. It lets you form your own opinion on each of these characters.
That's my exact point.
The moral ambiguity of Wyatt Earp. Okay, yeah, he's a lawman, but is he the most ideal, righteous person in the world?
Not at all.
His relationship is falling apart, and he's chasing after someone else and trying to stay strong. Doc is pretty much given up on what he thought his life was going to be and just does what he wants now. But also he has a moral compass when it comes to his friends. And, would it have mattered which side of the law he was on, or does it just matter that he's protecting and looking out for his friend?
I think and that kind of calls back to the reboot thing where it could just be a rival gang.
Yeah.
Because when it comes down to it, it's a question of principle.
Well, it's a morally gray movie.
Very much so.
And it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't spoon feed you.
So yeah, that's what I mean. So like, I know I keep referencing other movies, and I'm going to keep doing it. But so the movie that came out on Disney Plus, like right as the pandemic came out, it's called like Artemis Fowl. Yeah. I was listening to this guy break it down. He did a really good job of it. That movie is the absolute worst when it comes to just spoon feeding you things.
Yeah,
because what's it called? It just says he's the smartest kid in the world, or this and that, and then it never shows you.
You have to take what they tell you as truth, without ever seeing, there's no proof.
Nothing. Yeah. So with Tombstone, it lets you know because the guy's abusing the horse. Like the very first time you see Wyatt Earp, the guy's whipping the horse, so he grabs it, whips the guy. And that perfectly explains Wyatt Earp right there in that scene. Yeah. He believes in righteous, he believes in good, he believes in protecting the innocent horse, and he's not afraid to beat somebody with the whip because he knows nobody's going to...
no nonsense. There is a certain way you should act, and he will act the same way you do to prove that you shouldn't act that way.
Yeah, it shows you the very opening scene. It shows you his principles. It shows you how he carries himself.
You know where he stands.
It's such a perfect introductory scene for Wyatt Earp because you see that and you see that portrayed through the rest of the movie, but it makes sense because it built up to that in the very first time you see him.
Well, and they do the same thing with Doc. Doc comes in, and the very first thing he does is actually saves Wyatt.
Oh, I can't remember Doc's introductory.
Doc walks in.
Yeah. He stopped Billy Bob from
blasting him with a shotgun.
He's like, where do you think you're going with that?
Well, it shows his knowledge of people in the community and other gamblers because he calls them out by name.
Yeah, it shows him his street smarts.
He calls him out by name, stops him with what he's doing, and then makes him stand there, does his introductions, and then turns back to him and, oh, I forgot you were there. You can go now.
Yeah.
And it's just that
seriously,
the arrogance, the control, the sophistication, and the respect and fear that everybody has of him that you don't mess with him. He will burn you to the ground.
And the thing that keeps that scene from being cheap or plastic or spoon fed is the fact that they built up to it in the beginning. Because Wyatt's like, hey, where's Doc? Or how's Doc? You guys seen him?
Yeah, I miss that guy.
Yeah. So they perfectly build up to everything. They don't spoon feed it to you. They let you make the connection. Yeah. And that's how, and when you make the connection, it's the idea in your own head, kind of like Inception, that's what makes you start to feel these characters, because it's you connecting with them.
Yeah.
And with that, I think we can we hit the hour mark on the dot. So,
all right.
I mean, yeah, I love Tombstone. You obviously do. Otherwise, you wouldn't have watched it 1,000 times.
Favorite movie?
Yeah, but you'd have to put it to wrap everything up and put a little bow on it. If you wanted to remake the movie, we'll probably come back some other time or talk about it in the next one we do. Hey, by the way, we would choose these people for the cast because it'll take us a while.
We'll cut out the old part and edit it in.
Yeah, we'll probably try something like that. But
yeah,
we'll.
If you haven't seen it, go watch it.
Yeah,
watch it with your dad.
You have to put it in a modern day setting, and there's very few things you can nitpick. But I think something I should say, especially if we're going to do this in the future, is this is a rated R movie. We do not watch rated R movies. You can record it on Hulu, kind of like we did. You get a TV edit. I forgot what channel it was actually on. Oh, it was on the History Channel. Yeah, so we saw it on the History Channel, and it censors everything out, and
cleans up the violence.
Yeah.
For you, there's no language in the first place. There's a couple scenes that are
a couple religious figures dropped.
Yeah, but even that they didn't.
They censored
show.
it.
They didn't show. Because I've seen the original, and they cut a couple frames out of each of the killing scenes, each of the shooting scenes, so that you don't see the extra gore and violence. There's not a whole lot of sexual implication other than maybe some artwork on some walls. To begin with, there's no language because it's the language of the time, so profanity then versus profanity now is different. And other than that, it would be alcohol and tobacco consumption. But
that and just like overall violence, like they don't show
it was the violence that was rated R for,
right?
And they trimmed that out significantly in the TV edits.
Call it what you will, say that we don't get the true feel of the movie or whatever you want to say, but this is a father-son podcast, and we keep it family-friendly or PG-13 at best. We don't really curse on this, and if we did, we keep it tier 1. The basic stuff.
You've never seen the other way the unedited movie is. You've only seen it once. So
no, I've never seen the unedited version.
You feel like you're missing out on anything?
No, who cares? Yeah. But like, so we don't really review R-rated movies unless there's a TV edit of it. Like, well, we have the TV edit of Tombstone. We have the TV edit of Step Brothers. We have the TV edit of Shawshank, which we got to do soon because that is my favorite movie. I don't know why. I got a thing for prison escape movies because I also love Escape from Alcatraz.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. I've always liked it. So, all right.
Wrap it up.
Yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one.